of award and implementation. And again, these commodities that we're dealing with are basically the commercial supplies and services. It's the easiest thing to do. A pencil is a pencil, whether it's here in California or it's in Albuquerque. Well, maybe not in Albuquerque. Pencils are something different, don't they? But other places where an NSA is, pencil's a pencil, a piece of paper is a piece of paper, a computer's a computer. And so what's happening for me, representing the Small Business Program Office at Livermore, representing the goals that Livermore has been given to meet as far as Small Business Awards, Service Disabled Vet Awards, and all of the other categories in the arena, it's becoming more difficult for me. Because as I'm losing these commodities to this enterprise initiative, I'm not getting replacement commodities to go out and buy. So what does that mean for us collectively? First and foremost, more active participation in these types of meetings. I can't tell you the increase in the number of these types of meetings I've been attending to try to match niche requirements with niche suppliers. I spend more of my time now than I have in the past. It used to be very easy. Your office supplies. Well, here, we'll put you on the bid list for office supplies. And that was an easy win for me to go off and do. Now I have to spend more time marketing internally to my constituents to say, I know that you have a preferred supplier, and I know that you believe that this is the only supplier in the entire world that can perform what you're asking that supplier to perform. But I'm begging you to include these other entities, to look at them, to at least consider what they have to offer, and accept what they have, and let's see if we can get a better match. I've had some successes there. We've made some inroads. I've unfortunately had some failures as well. I kind of go back to the presentation a couple times ago. One of the keys to that successful relationship to be built is really the idea of proposals. I can't tell you how many times I work hard to get the match. I find the supplier and I get the programmatic resource to accept that they'll accept another proposal to look at. And the proposal comes in and it's not prepared. It's pretty clear that the proposal came in and the individual rushed around in the 11th hour, scrambled together and copied and pasted from here, here, and here and threw it in. They didn't respond to the request, they didn't answer the questions, they didn't give the data. And so then all of a sudden I have to take one giant step back, and not only have I lost that opportunity, but I've lost credibility with that entire organization to say, hey, in the future, consider these things. Now, so, talking about the Mentor Protege program, talking about opportunities in the laboratory, these things are best handled kind of in a one-on-one. I don't mind standing up and talking to y'all, but it's very difficult for me to say, oh, I know you're environmental, and I know that your office supplies, and I can make these matches. I have my cards. I absolutely love to get emails. Don't think you're pestering me. I tell people my brain can only remember about 60 days. So at any point during a 60-day window of time, a requirement may come across my desk, and I may or may not match that requirement up to individuals that have contacted me in the past. Your best bet is about every 60 days to just send me an email saying, hey, I'm still out here. This is what, remember, I met you at a league, I met you at Long Beach, I met you wherever, and this is what I do, and don't forget me, because there have been some successes there. There's been times, Jared.
Jim, I understand the enterprise situation.
Okay.
Okay. But in going with an enterprise situation, you're more apt to do less business with service-disabled veterans because a large company like Staples may not be a service-disabled veteran. Is there an avenue that you can address with the gentleman who handles office supplies that can get him connected and starting to develop a relationship with Staples where he can also serve this enterprise? You can have the big contract with Staples, but you're also meeting a DVBE goal. Otherwise, the DVBEs are going to kind of vanish from the Lawrence Livermore Laboratory as well as other companies like Genentech if there isn't a push by the laboratory to establish these kinds of relationships? Or can you go out and have an entity that's set aside from the enterprise that will allow this man to do business with directly with the laboratory? How can we do something to make this happen so that you don't exclude your DVBE? You'll get points with the federal government and grant monies. The DVBEs are serving their community as they always have, and we've got a wonderful working relationship all the way around.
It's almost as if I planted you there to ask that question.
I'll expect the check.
Big stay on the check. So, to answer Jerry's question, in the space of office supplies, so prior to this enterprise initiative, there was another initiative, and we love our acronyms too, ICPT, Intercontractor Procurement Team. This was made up 11 years ago. And it was doing basically the same group of government contractors getting together, doing essentially the same thing. And they went off in the areas of office supplies. And they said, we want to go out and negotiate an agreement that everyone can use the prices for to get office supplies. Now, what happened during that same time is there was a consortium of small office suppliers. They were all regional. There was one in Northern California, there was one in Albuquerque, New Mexico, there was one in Kansas City, there was one in and around the areas of Oak Ridge, Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee. And this group realized what ICPT was about to do. They were about to try to go off and negotiate an agreement that represented the entire geographic United States to cover delivery of office supplies to all of these government contractors. And this group of small businesses got their heads together and said, you know what, if we make a consortium, you representing the Northern California area, you representing Albuquerque, you representing the Southeast, we can go to ICPT as a consortium and say, we are prepared to negotiate with you as a single entity. We've leveraged our buying power across the consortium. We have a buying power that's nearly equivalent to some of the big boys, and we're going to share the same prices with you. Not only that, we're going to share the same catalog across the consortium. So what that did is that allowed the enterprise, at this point ICPT, it's kind of evolving into something else, but it allowed the members of the ICPT to get the benefit of this leveraged negotiation with a single entity, which it wasn't an LLC, it wasn't an incorporation, it was a consortium. And it allowed the consortium to get together and use the leveraged buying power of each of the small business entities to get together, and they were able to compete directly with large businesses, with the Staples and the Office Max of the world. At the time, Boise Cascade was in that vein. It allowed them to compete. And so what it did is it gave us consortium prices. It gave us small businesses that we then went out and wrote shadow agreements with each small business, so the laboratories of each one of the entities was able to get the small business credit. It allowed for that business to build and still got the benefit of the pricing. Now, one of the elements of this new enterprise initiative is the first thing that the group looks for. It looks for similar consortiums of small businesses that are doing the same thing that this office supply consortium did. And we found some. We found one in electrical supplies. They did basically the same thing. NAPA Auto Parts is essentially that. It's a group of independent entities that get together and buy, allow for a single negotiation. So these things exist out there. It's not that they're diametrically opposed. It's not that you can't have one if you're going to have the other. But it absolutely creates challenges. And there are areas where it's very difficult. But remember, in the area of supplies, sometimes you can leverage the relationship with a large business that has distribution arms throughout the US. A